One. Hey, welcome back to the Missouri Sports Network. I'm Guy Newcomb, the scoreboard guy, your host, powered by KICK 92.3, KICK, home of the Royals. Certainly glad you tuned in. And as always, the Missouri State Highway Patrol reminds us to take that 3 seconds and buckle up. It's 3 seconds that could save your life. Pleased to be joined now from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, prep writer, David Kvidahl. And Dave, first off, hey, thanks so much for your time today. And we've only met the one time, but it's good to see your face again.
It's good to see you as well, Guy. We see each other on Twitter here and there. I know you cover the whole state damn near. So it's a pleasure to see your smiling face again. Thank
you so much. But I tell you what, in this day and age, this has kind of become the norm here, the Zoom meetings, and it's an opportunity. It's been great for the Missouri Sports Network with 650,000 hits since we launched on July 1. But what's kind of been your experience and the challenges that you've faced over this past 19 months as far as just covering prep sports?
Well, I got very lucky. The job really worked with me. I didn't have to go out into the field. I got to work from home essentially, which was really actually challenging in many ways, especially in the fall when, the rest of the state had moved forward with fall sports, but St. Louis County and St. Louis City, I mean, they really put the brakes on that at preseason camps. And then it wasn't until October that the local St. Louis County and city teams got to actually practice and play for fall sports. I mean, we had a big chunk of North St. Louis County opt into the spring season for football. So, which actually lined up with what Illinois was doing. They moved their entire state football season because we're so close to the border. We cover a lot of schools over there too. So it was a lot of phone calls, a lot of watching press conferences online. And I mean, I did one press conference in person when the Rockwood School District announced that they were going to let their teams go outside the county line to play. But it's been a very long time since I sat in the stadium and watched a ball game, which I'm very much looking forward to getting back and doing this fall, now that I've got my shots and I'm good to go.
And before we talk a little bit about that, kind of give us an idea of your background. As you look at your camera there, I see the flag, I see some possibly some military background, but how did you arrive at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch?
Well, the flag is actually my grandfather's. He served in the Pacific Theater on a boat in World War II, which was funny to the family because he couldn't use a wrench and a screwdriver if you gave him the instruction manual, but he was able to put planes back together when they told him to. So that's where that comes from. That's actually my family. I grew up, I did 4 years in St. Louis public schools, and my dad's job took us to Indiana, where I went to high school, middle school and high school, graduated from there, and then came back to St. Louis U, graduated from St. Louis U in 2001. Was freshman class with Larry Hughes, who some folks might be familiar with, and those guys. So then I got a job here at what was the weekly paper, the St. Louis Suburban Journal. I started in Jefferson County and celebrated my 20th year with the company in June, actually. June 4th, 2001 was my first day on the job, and I'm still here, which in this line of work is a hard thing to do. So I'm particularly proud that I made it 20.
You bet, especially with the changes that you've probably seen just in the print media. There's been so many changes.
Well, when I started, we would design a newspaper that went out twice a week, and then it turned into a once a week paper. And then about 7 or 8 years in, about 2010, it turned into, well, we're doing online, and then we'll work on the paper. And then the Suburban Journal newspaper itself folded, I want to say about 2013. They decided that it wasn't going to be printed anymore. And then our prep sports work actually started going into the Post-Dispatch around that same time too. Because I actually work for stlhighschoolsports.com, which is owned by Lee Enterprises, which also owns the Post-Dispatch. So we're all in the same family, but I'm in a different subcategory, if you will. I don't get to hang out with Benjamin Hockman and Ben Fred on a regular basis and stuff. We don't see each other at the office. Then again, hardly anybody's been at the office the last 18 months. So.
Right. Well, as we head in now to this fall season, who are some? Well, and we'll talk about football here first, and maybe basketball down the road a little bit, or maybe in the next show, maybe in our next visit. But football wise, what are expectations there out of teams in your area? I know DeSmet was basically a college team, a year ago. CDS has had some success, and their coach there is actually from Bolivar, where I live. He had been the head coach at Bolivar High School maybe 20 years ago before he went to Staley and then made his way down to MICDS. But where does the power lay on the football side there in St. Louis?
Well, you mentioned the familiar names, in particular DeSmet, who has kind of been battling with CBC the last 4 years for supremacy in the Metro Catholic Conference, which also includes St. Louis U High, Chaminade, and Vianney, who, after a very impressive run not too long ago, winning 2 Class 5 state titles, has fallen on significantly harder times than before. Kyron Williams is at Notre Dame now. That tends to do those things. But DeSmet is still, I think, a step ahead of CBC, even with all their graduation losses. DeSmet's biggest move or addition this year is they hired Coach Carl Reed from Lutheran North. Coach Robert Steeples took an assistant coaching position with the Minnesota Vikings, leaving an open spot with a program in the midst of a real resurgence. I mean, it wasn't that long ago DeSmet was 0-10. I mean, they went from the basement under Coach Steeples all the way back to the pinnacle of winning the 2019 Class 6 title. So when they had this opportunity to bring somebody in, they went and got Lutheran North's Coach Carl Reed, who won the 2019 Class 2 state championship and had an incredible game, which I was fortunate enough to witness with Lamar in the state semifinals. I mean, it was rainy, ugly. Ronnie Perkins, recently drafted by the New England Patriots, played in that game. And because of a missed extra point, because those things matter, Lamar found a way to win 7-6 on a muddy, ugly day, went on to win, I don't even know what one, the 6th or 7th or 8th in a row. I mean, God love Lamar. They were incredible. So that was DeSmet's biggest addition. So we're going to be interested to see what Coach Carl Reed can do with that team. CBC has been young and kind of taken some lumps the last 2 years after dominating in 17 and 18 with the group they had. So it'll be fun to see who comes out on top, because of the way the districts are put together. They're going to have to see each other to advance to the Class 6 semifinals more than likely. I mean, unless they separate them. And the Misha office in Columbia, I don't see how 2 schools 2 miles apart are going to not see each other in the district. So whoever comes out of that will probably be representing the area in the championship game. Class 5, Chaminade is back, but St. Louis U High is a Class 6 school now I think about it. They're going to be much better, much improved. Lutheran North, losing Coach Carl Reed. They brought in a guy who had been at Rittner. Coach Kyle Wagner has done something incredible. He got hired at Rittner during the pandemic, coached them through the spring season, was hired to coach at Sykeston, but was there, I think, a week before Lutheran North's job opened up. So he resigned from Sykeston before he coached a practice and took the Lutheran North job. It's incredible. But there is a very talented young team at Lutheran North, which is going to make people miserable in Class 3. Cardinal Ritter, a semifinalist last year in Class 3, who lost to Blair Oaks in a very, very good game. They're going to be back with a pretty good group. Actually, here's a team that's not going to be around. Trinity High School, which won the 2018 Class 3 title and had some really great games with teams across the state during the playoffs, but with Lutheran North in particular. That school is no longer in existence. It folded. So a team to keep an eye on is St. Mary's, who we're very fortunate here in St. Louis. Our football talent it's not at the peak levels it has been recently, but it's really, really good. And St. Mary's has a young man by the name of Kevin Coleman, who's the #1 prospect in the state of Missouri and one of the top 2 wide receiver prospects in the nation. The #1 guy is named Luther Burden, who had been at Cardinal Ritter, but transferred to East St. Louis over the winter into the spring of the previous school year of 21. So his situation is unique because he played half a fall season with Cardinal Ritter, who didn't get to start, like I said, until October, transferred, and then played the mini season Illinois put on at East St. Louis High. So he actually played 2 football seasons his junior year. And oh, by the way, he was our offensive player of the year because he was incredibly exceptional in every time he touched the football. So Cardinal Ritter will be good. St. Mary's has Kevin Coleman. They got the quarterback, Christian Cotton, who had been at Trinity. He transferred there. So that's going to be fun. Class 5 Fort Zumwalt North remains one of our best teams in the area. They in battle in Columbia have had some really epic ball games between one another, be it in the playoffs or the regular season. So I'm looking forward to see what they can do. Marquette is a public school here in town that's kind of on the rise in Class 6. So Jefferson and Deschênes in the small schools. Lutheran St. Charles has a bunch of talent, including Arlen Harris Jr., a Stanford-bound running back who has racked up all kinds of numbers, but wasn't healthy at the end of last year. So it's going to be a very exciting fall. And compared to last year, it was so truncated and so many unknowns. And some kids got to start, some kids didn't. And I don't know if you noticed this watching ball games, but everybody told me that the lack of off season in the summer was really evident as the school year went along in football and basketball in particular. So it's going to be interesting to see with a more normal, and I use quotes, normal off season, what we can expect out of these guys and the coaches. But it's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of good football up here.
Yeah, you mentioned Lamar, and obviously you've got the web cities, of this area, and Cassvilles, Mount Vernon's, Monettes. That Big 8 conference seems to thrive. But I can remember going back to you talk about CBC and DeSmet maybe not being, having to meet in a district. I can remember, I believe, didn't Ladue and MICDS playing a state championship game in Class 4?
The year after they played in a district championship. That's right.
Yeah, and they're a couple miles apart too, aren't they?
They are. They are on the same road. They call it the War on Warson because that's the road. And I mean, they're separated by a mile, if that. And they ended up on opposite sides of the bracket. They say they use those rubber bands to group the schools, but some of those, it's like that rubber band's really stretchy. Like, the Class 6 district, it's kind of stretchy when suburban St. Charles is traveling to suburban Kansas City, but it is what it is. But yeah, they played in a district 2 years in a row and then met in the championship game. And actually in basketball, Webster Groves and Chaminade played for the Class 5 title, and the next year they played in a district semifinal.
That's
it's interesting how those things shake out.
Right now in the summer, I don't know, how much you know about the Springfield area. I'm actually in Polk County, where Southwest Baptist University is, up in Bolivar. Polk County has the highest per capita COVID positive test in the country. Greene County is right behind. What are you hearing there? Because there's a lot of talk about, maybe by this time in August, in the next month, the numbers are doubling if people are not in this area, just not going to get their vaccines, and a possibility of maybe shutting down Greene County sports and Polk County sports, similar to what the city did in St. Louis a year ago. What are you hearing there?
Well, the conversation today, as the hospitals and medical folks are kind of looking at it, as the numbers are going up here. I mean, across the country, we're seeing that. I mean, obviously, Southwest Missouri is at the heart of the latest, roughest, toughest stuff right now, and it's just heartbreaking to read about all the healthcare workers who are back to this just unimaginable grind of trying to help people through this situation. But the conversation today is whether or not to issue a mask mandate, because that was rescinded when the CDC announced that vaccinated folks didn't need to wear a mask. And so St. Louis County, St. Louis City pulled theirs. I think the next morning it was taken away. But now they're talking about, they're asking everyone to please, when you're in public out and about, to whether you got a shot or not, cover your face just to tamp down the spread. But that's it. There's no conversation about not having sports. There's no conversation about school getting disrupted. I mean, my kids did online school last year. They're in elementary, so they're older than kindergarten, but not quite middle school. So they didn't know how independent they truly were, but they weren't staring at a computer screen, not knowing what to do either. So I got very lucky in that aspect, but there's no talk of them not going back to school. So that's what we're doing here. But I think, as we all know, like, things change pretty quick depending upon the situation. And I think a lot of kids in high school that I talked to, the senior class this past year, were very reflective on just to not take anything for granted and not assume it's going to be there, because prom, graduation, football games, all that kind of stuff got so disrupted. So while today we're on track for an August 9th first day of practice and week 1 here later into August to get football and things rolling, but I mean, who's to say that the situation doesn't get out of hand and then we're all back in our shelters hoping that it goes better. So but as of right now, everything is on track to play it out, see how it goes.
We're visiting with Dave Kvidahl from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. And Dave, as you look at next year, maybe just a little bit about basketball. I know Chaminade, the Bass Pro Tournament of Champions, has kind of unveiled their field. Chaminade is a part of that. What do you know about Chaminade?
Well, the Red Devils are an interesting team because, I mean, they have traditionally been one of our better programs the last, I don't know, about 15 years. David Lee, Bradley Beal, Jason Tatum have all come through. Tyler Cook is an NBA player. I mean, they've had some really great teams come through and make an impression at the Bass Pro Tournament while doing it. But their biggest player, actually, he was our All-Metro Player of the Year here in the city, Terrace Reed, the big 6'10" center who helped them get to the state semifinals last year, where they played obviously the championship Kickapoo team that went on the next night to win. He transferred to Link Year Prep in Branson. He's not going to be around with the Red Devils this school year. So I'm curious to see what happens. There has been some discussion about they might be getting some other kinds of kids coming in. Local school here named St. Louis Christian, which was not a Misha school, but it was a Misha affiliate. So they were certified to play against Misha schools. So, I mean, they would play the Vashans of the world, the Chaminades of the world, and their students came from all across the country. Now, there's talk some of their kids, now that the school is folded, might enroll locally, including a very, very talented young center who, rumor has it, is looking at Chaminade and is headed there, but I have not confirmed that. That is just the speculation on the street. But they have a great senior guard in Damian Mayo. They got a couple of younger guys who were key pieces last year, a couple of twin brothers. Oh, I wish I could have the Strutter brothers, who were big pieces for them getting a state last year. I think it was the 6th time in 7 seasons Chaminade made the state semifinals, which, I mean, anytime you're doing that is pretty impressive. I mean, and that doesn't include Jason Tatum's sophomore year when they didn't win a district. So they've been really, really good, and I expect they'll be really, really good again. CBC, again, with Jason Tatum's dad, Justin Tatum, their coach, they're going to be in the mix again. DeSmet was booked for the Bass Pro last year before it got called off. They'll have a very talented group. They'll be really good too. And then Cardinal Ritter, who won Class 3 in 2020, won Class 5 in 2021. They got a group that's young and hungry and ready to go back and prove that they're no fluke. So I just, I like football, but growing up in Indiana, I just love basketball. And then my first taste of the Bass Pro, I want to say, was when Chaminade got brought down in 2016, and I just fell in love with it. I mean, there were a lot of people moaning and complaining when Misha moved the state championships to Springfield. I was not one of them. The facility is great, but just the energy in the room of people who love basketball, it's unmatched. I mean, of all the things I missed last year working from home, being in the gym full of people on an electric night, there's just nothing like it. So good hoops up here, and very much looking forward to Bass Pro 2022. I expect to be a very good Red Devils team coming down to see what they can do.
What does the rest of the summer hold for you? I mean, the fall practices won't start until August 9th, and you've got volleyball jamboree starting anywhere from the 24th through the 28th. What's kind of on your docket right now? Are you a big Cardinal fan? Which last night could have, had to talk yourself off the ledge after blowing that 5-run lead. But what does the rest of the summer hold?
Well, I'm on vacation for a few more days. I'm enjoying it. My parents live here in town, so my kids get to spend the day with grandma and grandpa, and I don't, which is nice as an adult to have alone time to read a book and do those kinds of things. A lot of mowing the yard, catching up on stuff like that. But then next week we're going to start doing our Super 30 countdown, where we count down the 30 top high school prospects in the senior class. A lot of them have either verbally pledged to or have received offers from the University of Missouri. I mean, Mizzou's been Coach Drinkwitz, man. I don't know what he's put in that punch, but everybody wants a taste because they are coming. And some of the best kids we have committed there already. And what I found so fascinating is our defensive player of the year, Makai Wingo from DeSmet. He was the Class 6 defensive player of the year 2 years running. He was our defensive player all Metro last year. He was the first guy to commit locally to Drinkwitz and proceeded to sell everybody he could to come and play in Columbia. And that has only continued. So I don't know if the Tigers can get in on Luther Burden, like we talked about, the East St. Louis wide receiver, #1 in the country. He's currently committed to Oklahoma, but has decided to take his visits because during a pandemic, he didn't get to do that. So who knows? Maybe they can get some of that punch into his mouth, and he'll be down there too. But we're going to start counting those down here next week. So STL High School Sports and STLtoday.com. You can read all about the local boys who'll be putting on the pads and helmets and playing ball this fall.
You bet. Well, hey, it's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate you being generous with your time, especially on your vacation. I didn't know you were on vacation, but
happy to do it.
Hey, I look forward to many more moments like this, and maybe once a month or whatever, we can kind of get together and spend 20 minutes talking about sports here on the Missouri Sports Network. But Dave Kvidahl from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and thank you so much for being a part of it today.
Thanks, Guy. I appreciate your time.
All right. We'll be back after these messages here on KICK 92.3.